Welcome back, everyone, to AI Takeover. You know, AI is everywhere these days.
Yeah,
And honestly, sometimes it feels like it's taking over the world.
it really does sometimes, right?
It does. So we thought for this deep dive, we'd tackle something that I think is on a lot of parents' minds, which is how to help our kids navigate this world that's so infused with AI.
Yeah.
And we found a great article actually called The Beginner's Guide
Okay.
from the blog Critically Curious.
Yeah.
That's really good at sort of breaking down some of these bigger concepts into really practical advice for parents.
Awesome.
So if you guys want to learn more after this, definitely check out criticallycurious.com.
Yeah.
But I think maybe the first hurdle is figuring out, how do we even explain to kids what AI is?
Right.
Like, how do we make it relatable?
Well, I think you have to start really simple with them.
Okay.
And think of AI as a super smart robot brain that learns from information and then makes decisions based on what it knows. So you can think about things like Siri or Alexa,
Okay.
So it's like instead of a human brain making a choice, it's a computer brain, but it's still making choices based on what it's been taught.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like AI is making the choice of like what song to play next on your playlist or something.
Exactly. And you know what? I think those are such great examples because those are things that kids already are interacting with every day.
That's true.
Another one is Netflix recommendations. That's AI. Just suggesting shows based on what you've watched before.
That is a good point. So they're already interacting with AI. I wonder, for the listeners out there, have your kids ever like questioned how those things work?
Right.
Because it's easy to just like accept the suggestions or whatever, but to actually think about it critically, like, wait, how did they know that I might like that show?
Yeah,
That's where some of this like critical thinking starts.
exactly. And I think that leads right into, another one of the biggest challenges with this is just there's so much AI generated content online now. Deep fakes, stories written by AI, chatbot conversations.
Yeah.
It's really hard even for adults to tell what's real and what's not.
Yeah. It feels like every other week there's like a new viral video or image that turns out to be like AI generated.
Right.
And it's like, whoa.
And so for kids who are still learning how to think critically about all this stuff, it's really important to teach them how to be little digital detectives.
I love that. Little digital detectives.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some clues they should be looking for?
Well, sometimes it just comes down to looking really closely at the details. Does something seem a little too perfect? A little too polished? Maybe the lighting in a video looks a little weird, or the movements seem slightly unnatural. Deepfakes are especially tricky. Those are videos where somebody's face has been digitally replaced with somebody else's.
It's like a game, though. It's like spot the, giveaways. Oh my gosh. We should have like a family AI investigation night.
Oh, that's fun.
See if we can figure out what's real and what's AI.
Learning about AI doesn't have to be scary. It should be engaging and fun for everyone.
Right.
And we want them to be curious, not fearful. And we want them to question everything they see online.
Question everything.
Yeah.
That should be the motto, I think, for like navigating online these days.
Absolutely. And there are certain questions that they can ask about any piece of content they see, whether it's a news article or an image or something on social media, like who made this? Why did they make it? Could there be any biases here? What's the source of this information?
So it's like we're turning them into little AI detectives.
Yes.
They're like going through, they're analyzing the evidence.
You got it.
So, okay, so like I can imagine a game where like you give them a piece of AI generated news or an image.
Yeah.
And they have to like investigate and be like, okay, is this credible? Is the website legit? Does this line up with what I already know about this topic?
Exactly. Because it's all about getting them to think for themselves.
And not just take everything they see at face value.
Totally. Okay, so we've talked about how AI works. We've talked about how to spot like fake content. What about bias in AI?
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one, right?
It is, and it can be a tricky concept to understand.
Yeah.
Because it's often subtle. And it's not always intentional. It's not like the AI is trying to be biased on purpose.
Right.
It's more like it learned those biases from the data that it was trained on.
Right. It's like garbage in, garbage out kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you train an AI on like biased information, then you're going to get biased output.
It's true. Think about it like this. Imagine you've only ever had chocolate ice cream.
Okay.
You might think chocolate is the best flavor because it's all you know, right?
Yeah.
So AI can be kind of like that. It's perspective is limited by what it's been exposed to.
Okay, so, like, if an AI is trained on mostly pictures of cats, it might think that a dog or a rabbit is also a cat,
Exactly.
just because it hasn't learned the difference. Right. It's all about the data it's been fed, and that data can reflect our human biases, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah, okay, so, like, what's a real-world example of how that actually plays out? Like, how does that bias actually show up?
Well, there have been issues with some facial recognition software that's used by, like, law enforcement and stuff. And it turns out that they're less accurate at identifying people of color.
Wow.
And that's likely because the AI was trained on a data set that was mostly white faces. So it leads to these skewed results.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That's not just like, oh, it got it wrong. It's like there are real consequences to that.
Absolutely. And it's a good example of why it's important to have conversations about AI and bias with their kids.
Yeah, for sure. But how do you explain something so complicated to them? Like, it seems pretty abstract.
I mean, it is complex.
Yeah.
But there are ways to make it relatable, even turn it into an experiment.
Okay.
Have them do an internet search on Google. About a current event or a social issue.
Okay.
And then have them change the search terms just slightly and compare the results.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I bet they'd be surprised by how different the results can be.
Yeah. And then you can talk about, why do you think the results are different? What might be influencing the AI behind these results?
Right.
It's a way to make them see how AI works.
Yeah.
And how it can be
It
influenced.
gets them actually thinking about it.
Yeah.
Instead of just like taking it exactly at the face value.
We want to encourage that critical thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about explaining AI. We've talked about spotting fake content.
Yeah.
We've talked about bias. What else? What else should parents keep in mind?
I think it's really important to encourage hands-on exploration with AI.
Okay.
Let kids actually play with AI tools.
Yeah.
There are things like DALL-E 2, which can create images from text descriptions.
Oh, yeah.
Chatbots like ChatGPT, which, can have conversations that sound like a real person. You can literally write a sentence like a cat wearing a top hat riding a unicycle on the moon.
Right.
And it will create like an image
Yeah.
based on that.
Yeah, but it's important to remember it's still AI. Right, with all its limitations and biases.
Exactly.
And I think by using these tools, kids can get a better understanding of how AI works and where it might fall short. They might start asking questions like, why did it make this image instead of that image?
Right.
Did it actually understand what I was asking it to do?
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's not perfect.
Yeah.
It can misinterpret instructions and come up with like
Absolutely.
weird stuff that you're like, wait, what?
Yeah. It's a really valuable lesson to learn because it teaches them that AI is a tool.
Right.
And like any tool, it has its pros and cons.
Exactly. So it's not just about like being on the receiving end of AI content.
Right.
It's about actually engaging with it.
Right. And experimenting and being like, okay, well, how does this work? What are its limitations?
Exactly. And there are tons of AI platforms that are made for kids.
Okay.
Like code.org has a great AI lab where kids can learn to code and the basics of AI. Google's Teachable Machine lets them train their own AI.
So cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like giving them a behind the scenes look
Yeah.
at how this stuff works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of being like, oh, I don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like, I can actually build this stuff.
Exactly. And that feeling of empowerment, I think, is so important, especially as we move into a world that's just going to have more and more AI.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about a lot here. We talked about what AI is, how to spot fake content. We've talked about bias in AI. We've talked about hands-on exploration. But why does all this matter?
That is the question.
Right. Like, why is AI literacy so important for our kids?
Right.
Like, beyond just protecting them from misinformation or understanding how their favorite app works.
Yeah, it's about giving them the tools for a future that's going to be shaped by AI.
Right. So, like, we're kind of future-proofing them in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because AI is going to touch, like, every aspect of their lives.
Think about it. A lot of jobs in the future are going to require some understanding of AI.
Yeah, that's true.
And being able to work with these systems. And if kids grow up knowing how to think critically about AI, they're going to be able to adapt to those changes and thrive.
It's not even just a tech skill.
Right.
It's a life skill.
It really is. And it's about, being an informed citizen online. Being able to, like, tell what's real, what's fake, make smart decisions.
It's about empowerment.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. And it all starts with, giving them that knowledge and those critical thinking skills so that they can, be in a world where AI is everywhere.
Yeah. I think the big takeaway here is that teaching kids about AI isn't just about safety or, avoiding scams. It's about empowering them to actually be a part of shaping this technology.
Absolutely.
Be a part of this world that is going to be so full of AI.
Right.
So it's not just like, here's a device, go figure it out.
Right.
It's like, we're going to go on this journey together.
Right.
And like you said, equip them with these critical thinking skills so they can navigate it responsibly.
And it can be fun,
Yeah.
Exploring AI together, playing those little detective games we talked about, trying out tools like DALL-E 2.
Yeah.
Like, it's a chance to learn something new and bond as a family.
Yeah. And it's approaching AI with curiosity and excitement
Yeah.
instead of fear,
Yeah.
like you said.
Yes.
We want them to be like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
I want to understand how this works.
Exactly. And remember, every interaction with AI is an opportunity to learn.
It's true.
Whether it's, asking Siri a question, playing a video game that uses AI, scrolling through social media.
Right?
Encourage your kids to ask questions.
Mm-hmm. It's about being mindful.
Yeah. And you know how AI is influencing their experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's about asking those questions and encouraging our kids to ask those questions.
Yeah.
Just building that into the culture of our family.
And, by doing that, we're not just helping them navigate AI, we're helping them become, better thinkers.
Yeah.
And just more prepared for whatever the future holds.
Right. It's about giving them the tools to think critically and make good choices and be informed.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive today into AI and parenting.
Mm-hmm.
We've covered a lot of ground. We talked about how to explain AI to kids, how to spot fake content, the issue of bias, hands-on tools.
Yeah.
It's a lot. But, it all comes back to that idea of empowering our kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Equipping them with these tools to be curious and to be engaged and, ultimately shape this technology rather than just be shaped by it.
Right. It's about helping them feel like they can be a part of this future.
Yes, I love that. Well, a huge thanks to Critically Curious for giving us all this awesome info to talk about.
Yeah.
If you guys want to learn more, check out their website, criticallycurious.com.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks all of you for tuning in, and we will see you next time on AI Takeover.